So you talked about analytics as function of data collected in the past, right? Say if companies entering in a new market, like our partner Square Yards, and they don't have any past data, for example. Now what shall they do? How shall they leverage your expertise?
Okay, I will not answer how can they leverage our expertise, but uh, uh, but what they can definitely do is, see, there's always data. Most people have this sort of mind block that when they start thinking of a problem, they think, but there is no data. I don't have data. Actually, that's probably the least important problems right now for companies. There is too much data. It's just a question of whether you're looking in the right direction or not. It's public data, private data, third-party data that you can buy, data exchanges where you can buy stuff. There's lots and lots of data. You just have to believe. So that's number one. Data always exists for every problem. Second thing I would say is that it's about getting better than random. You don't have perfection. You don't have perfection in anything. Right? Do you have a way in which you're learning and getting better? So even if a little bit of data, you may have 3 months of data, and that's not enough to do anything major. Right? But is 3 months of data enough to do better than what you were doing before? That's what you're looking for. And most of the time, if you have not leveraged analytics enough, you can easily show that any data will give you a little bit extra advantage, and the initial advantages are going to be huge, because if you not use analytics before, the amount of inefficiencies and the kind of juice that exists in terms of using analytics is huge. If you've used it a long time, it's like Google versus Bing, the initial example. There, you're basically, they two are really, really good. They've used everything that exists. Now the fight has moved to something else. But in general, there's a lot that's available to actually gain from an analytics standpoint.
Hi, Shrikant. My question is basically, I have seen that most of the organizations use a lot of outbound data or outbound marketing by buying data and doing calls, or any form of advertisements or any types of marketing campaigns. But what I feel personally is that if inbound data can be used and effectively channeled into targeting the right set of customers, will the hit rate of that data uses be much more than the outbound that we do?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's absolutely obvious that inbound is far more effective, because there's already a relationship or a indication of interest, and people should use it, and people are using that. I mean, I think you may be referring to a very select set of companies which are very India focused and India centric, but across the world, I think people just totally get it.
So how do you think what should the platforms to attract this kind of inbound data and analyze this? If you have done similar kind of something in your...
So, sorry, can you say that again?
So how do we kind of attract this inbound data, and how do we utilize that? If you use some kind of similar kind of thing in your analytical...
So maybe I don't understand what you mean by inbound data. If you can elaborate,
So how do I create that inbound data, and how do I utilize that inbound data? And when I say this, a lot of inbound data is unstructured. So how do I overlay that unstructured data over my structured data and make that combination so that I can use it more productively? I'm not sure if I can kind of...
Yeah. So inbound data, for example, is, let's say, your inbound call center. It's you're getting lots of interest or issues or questions and stuff like that, and you have call center nodes and all that stuff, right? Now, can you use that to understand what customers are really looking for? Absolutely yes, because they're actually telling you what they're looking for. Unfortunately, you're not leveraging that. So let's say those are call center nodes which are very difficult to track, because they're unstructured and they're really large, and they're not in any kind of a queryable form, right? So you basically process that data and create columns out of that. That's one way to do it. I mean, there are many ways to do it, but one way to do it is to basically dimensionalize that and query and basically set up a way in which you can create this mass of unstructured text into a bunch of columns that you really understand. For example, has that person talked about mortgage? Let's say I'm a bank and I'm trying to figure out if I should sell. Has that guy talked about mortgage in any entire call? So you can just scan through the text and say, has there been any conversation about a house, housing loan, mortgage, or whatever, PLR, whatever those terms that associate with that are concerned, and see, yes, this kind of conversation has happened. You can create a column saying, okay, this customer may be or may have spoken about mortgage with me. So I'm just giving one example, but essentially you take a bunch of unstructured data and then create a bunch of columns that actually then you can start to use in a structured database, because then you can attach that to this customer and saying, this customer on this date talked about this, and then can I use that information to maybe predict response propensity to a mortgage offer that I make, stuff like that. I'm just, this is just one